together, increases their output, and possibly new ideas can float, and there could be easier and better thought which can come out for possible solutions of these problems. And I think the other issue which is there between institutions or academic institutions, money factor is not as robust a driving force. It is science. And science, fortunately enough, is just positive competition. There's no negative competition. Financially, I would envy Anuj. He is saying that he's odd man out. But I would say that looking at the title of this conference, the Global Bio Business Forum, he's the only one in. We are all out. So the point I wanted to make is money sometimes spoils the broth. Science which drives the force. That's why the things work together and it's positive.
Thank you, Doctor. I would also like to pick up your brains, and if you can take us, you had a very recent, experience of setting up this Medanta-Duke partnership, and that's also part of an institutional framework. So how do you feel that such partnerships can help transform the global framework on the clinical research side? And if you can take us through your journey of what are the key challenges or the key success factors do you look in such partnerships?
I would just say that as a cardiologist, as a physician, as just a plain, simple clinical person, I would say that I read partnerships into three forms. One is, the first and foremost, the partnerships are built on a common goal. There has to be a common goal which both the partners are thriving to achieve. Second is, there has to be trust between the partners. And the third thing is, there has to be scope of gains for individuals which are different, defined differently with different partners. So that's how we actually define collaborations, and I think the sustenance is only dependent on these factors. In our also, let me in a brief define what we are. We are a 1,600-bedded hospital in Gurgaon, just 2 years old. But we want to dwell into the most ethical and most transparent mechanism of treating disease and research and academics. So the goal which drove Duke and us together was to find solution for unsolvable problems as of now, the diseases. And this is something which was after a visit of the Duke team. They surveyed a lot of localities in India, and then they discussed with various institutions, and we thought we have the common goal, and we can work it together. The second thing is trust. Our principles are very simple, and so are Duke's. And so we found that ethics, which we are the most focused on, we may lose money, but we should not compromise on the quality. That is the first thing. Second thing is the knowledge, because we have both sides have a lot of people, a lot of professionals who are excelling in the fields of science and in different disciplines. And the third thing is transparency. We have our systems which have been placed as transparent as can be. So this was something which was also in our favor to actually establish this collaboration. And finally, we had to respect others' gains. What was Duke's part of it? Obviously, the Duke's part was that they would get globalized. They would go out of the US and get into the various countries and do reasonable, good, ethical research. And for that, they were looking for partners. And obviously, how much I may not like it, but ends up into business. Business is what drives a partnership. And this would increase the business. That's what they think. For us also, we were starting, and what we thought was that it's an opportunity to bring the collaboration with a person or a group who knows how to do the things. And it's no intelligence in reinventing the wheel. if there is a partnership which can actually let us know how to do the things properly in a conducive fashion, I think that's the best part of it. That's the thought process which was going on through our mind. There were a lot of discussions, lot of things which went into our mind also, that as in the previous session also somebody was mentioning from the crowd, that the number of Indian molecules which have come to an international market are possibly countable on a single hand. And there has to be some reason for that. It's not that we don't have brain power. It's not that we don't have mechanisms to produce that kind of expertise, but there are reasons beyond those which were creating issues. And that is why we actually thought that we should establish this proof of concept unit in collaboration with Duke, who knows where this system is already established, and they are doing a lot of studies on early phase clinical studies, so that we can then discuss with our own country pharmas and chemists to bring out those molecules into the clinical practice. So with those aims, which were possibly the gains which we thought were from our side, we had a solid ground to lay down this collaborative partnership. And I think it took us about an year to draft those the agreements and all. And we are proud to say that last November, we had opened this MDRI, which is Medanta Duke Research Institute, catering for proof of concept unit trials.
Thank you, Doctor. I think, thank you for taking us through the case study. Another shift which we are seeing globally in the industry is a change from the complete chemistry-based approach towards the biologic-based approach.
Work with chemistry. I'm not a chemist myself, but I have Gautam Das as one of my mentors, so I always refer most of my cases to him, and it's been one of his and my views have been very, very, how do I say, focused on one point, is the variability, and how do you address variability? Because at the end of the day, all models fall through if you cannot deliver. So I think the simplest model is when you get something, you have to deliver. Given that as something that is already on the table, in chemistry-based approaches, it's very technical, but at the end of the day, the variance and the variability of the molecule itself is pretty limited. Pretty much the chemists or the medicinal chemists would know through the various reactions how to arrive at the predetermined molecule. The inherent variability and the variance of the biological system, which we have some knowledge over, some amount of controls, but they're mostly external, whether it's through a fermentation process or through a cell culture process, there are certain issues we are not able to intrinsically control. So primarily when we go through to a more biology-based production system or delivering biological molecules, these are primarily macromolecules. They're very large. They introduce a lot of changes. Systems under stress and under duress introduce a lot of changes in the final molecule. So when we shift from a chemistry-based approach to a more biology-based approach, the biggest issue which I have faced, or I think most of us face, is how do we stick to specifications of delivery? How do you align yourself to be able to be within the specifications as required by your customer? And most of our models that we work with intrinsically arrive on this single system is how do you deliver what has been asked for? So when you say the key changes, I think primarily all of us are taking a very limited view on being able to just deliver what we've been asked to do. And most of our risk mitigation, contractual terms, everything focuses on how will we measure, how will they measure, and how will we sort of get into that fact that what we measure and what they measure about 7,000 miles away will typically be the same molecule. And when we ship this molecule from India to the predetermined location, there will be no change, there will be no sort of chemical variation in the molecule that we have supplied. We've recently undergone such an issue with one of our customers that as we shipped from here, the buffer that we had placed in actually brought about changes, because when you are doing a lot of preclinical work, there's not too much of background work that you would already commit to be able to see buffer-induced or other excipient-induced changes in the molecule. That comes a little later. So when you look at these things, I think the primary change is how do you really meet the specifications of the customer that is required without having the undesired effects.
Thank you, Prabhuda.